A lot of attention to an interview you gave a few days ago. The headline, at least, was that the number of containers sitting on docks had declined by about a third. Can you go into that and whether or not that's been sustained?
Yes, and it has, Carl. Since we announced a penalty scheme back on October 25th, we've seen all import containers decline by about a third. And those aging containers that we specifically targeted are now down nearly 40%. Those are the boxes that have been sitting here 9 days and longer.
So what made that happen?
We've tried everything from diplomacy to collaboration, meetings at the White House 3 times a week, meeting with the president, myself directly. But it was a number of levers that we continued to pull, and it's the work of Port Envoy John Picari in bringing all these supply chain stakeholders together. But when the rubber really hit the road, looking at this penalty and trying to get this cargo segmented were really the developing facts that we had to put on the ground. There's cargo that's sitting here that is not needed right now. It may have been a little late for certain seasonal products or a little early for next spring. We needed to get that cargo out of the way and start speeding the product to market that needed to make it there for the holidays, as well as the parts and components for American factories.
All right, so tell me how that affects the coming weeks and months. I've seen some work done this week that argues that you really can't count on real relief until, say, Chinese New Year, which thankfully comes a little bit earlier than usual next year.
That's right, Carl. A couple things are good. And you're reporting this week on the retail numbers and individual companies' quarterly numbers. Very encouraging. Inventory is moving through the domestic supply chain. And even Santelli reported that we beat the street's estimate on nationwide inventories this week. We'll start to see a leveling of imports following the Thanksgiving holiday, but a little bit of a ramp up, as you rightly say, before the first week of February and the early Lunar New Year. Second quarter, retailers are telling me that they'll focus on replenishment of inventory to further build that pipeline here domestically. And then we'll probably pivot towards the middle of next year into a more traditional peak season.
Gene, it's David. You know, I can remember, obviously, you've done any number of interviews with us, which we're thankful for. You had the 60 Minutes piece. I know you were on with Jane Wells. It's a while ago, but I remember, you know, it seemed as though when you were asked, well, can't you go 24/7 and then, well, the truckers. And watching the 60 Minutes piece, it felt like people were pointing fingers at each other. Is that still the case? Is there still an issue with the truckers? Or what you were describing at the beginning of this interview, has that sort of helped solve some of that issue?
Well, I'm encouraged by the way everyone's pulling together, David. We work traditionally about 19 hours a day here at the port, and with the surge, we've been flexing, opening a little early, crossing over lunch times, as well as for the transition to the evening gates beginning at 6 o'clock. We've also said that we would be open 24 hours a day, but we've had very few takers. The warehouses traditionally work during the days, and for truckers, we've seen that 30% of our appointments to pick up cargo continue to go unused every day, and it's 50% wide open on the weekends. We've got to get this orchestra of supply chain stakeholders on a similar calendar, and that's going to take time.